All right, you're watching the Mike Nelson Show. I want to thank everybody who's already liked and subscribed to the channel. We already have almost 400 subscribers in just about 3 months. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe. I got a very special guest today. I got a legendary heavy metal singer. I got Tim Ripper Owens. How you doing today, Tim?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. I usually don't do these interviews this early in the morning, but we're still doing it.
All right. I like it.
All right. So, how did it all start out for you? You of course are a singer. How did you get into music? How did it all start out?
Well, really, I always sang. I always listened to stuff. My parents, whatever rock and roll music, old 50s and 60s music. And then my dad loved, had Bachman Turner Overdrive and Aerosmith and Alice Cooper. And I just was always singing. I was always in choirs singing and always sang, so I just always liked to do it.
And what was your first pro band? When did you finally get into it, like a real band?
Well, I didn't make about the first three I auditioned for out of high school. So I always laugh at that. I remember years later when the guy was washing my car at the car wash, my Jag, I said, "Hey man, how you doing? I wonder if you wish I would have made the band now." But to be honest, I wasn't very good. I didn't know how to sing at that time. I sang everything like AC/DC. I sang everything like Brian Johnson. Everything didn't matter. If I sang the Scorpions, it sounded like Brian Johnson. If I sang, Judas Priest, it sounded like Brian Johnson. So, but right after that, I joined a band, tried out for a band called Damage Incorporated. It had two M's, so it was like Hammer, but Damage Incorporated. And then we went all original. I don't know when that probably was, 88, 89, 88, probably somewhere in there. No, 87, 88, somewhere in there. I don't even know. Maybe 86, 87. And then we changed it eventually to Brain Aside, which was all original and pretty heavy stuff.
And when you grew up in Ohio, right? So how do you think that shaped you as a musician?
Well, I mean, it was a great scene. It, still is a good scene. And one thing about it, I grew up here and I'm a local guy. I never had to move or anything. And, luckily for me, I had good roots, my parents and family and friends. So it was kind of grounded you like that. The metal scene was always really good. And the guys I played with were really great musicians and my age and influenced by the same stuff at that time. And, it definitely helped mold me into what I am today.
And you finally got it. You made your first real recording. That was in 1993, right? With Heart of a Killer.
Well, the first official, yeah, because Brain Aside had made, back then you would make cassette tapes. That's what you do. And we went in the studio and made stuff back then. But yeah, Heart of a Killer would have been the first official CD I made.
And how was it like, finally getting to make an official CD? Being in a pro studio and all that.
Well, it was great. Again, I was in pro studios with Brain Aside and stuff like that. But I guess having a label, flying to Germany to record it was the big thing, all of a sudden you're flying to Germany and recording it on a Massacre record labels. And so it was a pretty big deal at the time, to be able to do that. And I think that record, I did my vocals in like 1 or 2 days. It was the whole record. Like that was the only 2 days I had to do it too. So if I was sick or no good, that was going to be it. So I was like, you got these 2 days to record it. So this is it,
And during this time, you started doing a lot of Priest songs, right? On tour?
Well, we didn't really yet. What eventually had happened was, I always did before that. I always sang in cover bands. We did anything from Anthrax to Sabbath to Slayer to Metallica to Priest to Maiden, all that stuff, Dio. But when Winter's Bane came out, heavy metal was really bad at that time, and some promoter said, some agent said, man, you should do a Judas Priest tribute band. And you'll be able to tour. So we would open up as Winter's Bane and then play the Judas Priest stuff. And we were able to make more money, so it was able to play our original stuff and get paid.
And, you joined Judas Priest in 1996. How did that finally happen? How did it happen, though?
Well, the Winter's Bane ended up breaking up. And then I quit the Judas Priest tribute band. And then about a year later, I was in a Seattle tribute band at the time. And Judas Priest found the videotape of like my very last show I made. And had the management get a hold of me, and it was crazy. Flew me out to England just like that, and I walked in and sang one line of a song, and they're like, "All right, you got the gig." It was pretty crazy.
I mean, and how was it like, you're replacing a legendary singer, Rob Halford? Did you feel pressure, from the band and management and everything?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I think as KK used to always say, the proof is in the pudding. So I think really just I was pretty confident with my singing. I was confident that people might not like the records, but then again, it's Judas Priest, and they always changed, and people didn't like every record they did anyways. And but all I had to do for myself was sing like me. And if people didn't accept me, they didn't accept me. They wouldn't have not accepted me because of vocal talent, because I definitely had the talent to be in there and do it. Um, but the band always made me feel comfortable, and I always knew that I could do it.
And you know how they like Ronnie Dio talked about, when he replaced Ozzy, there was a lot of fans that didn't like him. Did you ever go through that, touring with Judas Priest and like the fans?
Absolutely. Ronnie and I used to talk about that all the time because he's always like, well, yeah, we got something in common. People would, I had these guys in New Orleans that would always have their back to me. We would play the House of Blues, and we probably did 3 shows there, and they would always have their back to me and be flipping me off, like I'm up back there and they're always, and, but I didn't have a ton of it. I mean, you didn't have social media as much then at all, really. Then you didn't have your blabbermouths and your people who know it all. Nowadays you got all the fans who tell you they say all these bad things about you when they don't even know how to put a sentence together, really. Yet they're trying to bring you down. But at that time, I had some people, but I always seem to win them over at the concerts because if you come to the concert and you don't think I can sing the songs, then all right. And eventually I won those. I remember I remember when I won them over. Took about 3 concerts, and we were doing Diamonds and Rust, and I finished Diamonds and Rust, and they finally turned around and went like this, and I'm like, okay, I finally won them over.
And overall, did you enjoy your time in Judas Priest? You were there for almost 6 years. So did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. Loved it.
And of
I
the
had a,
two
I had a
albums,
great time.
and of the 2 albums that you recorded, which one is your favorite?
Um, Probably Demolition.
And why? Because of the production, or what do you like about it?
Yeah, I just like the vocal melodies and the vocal lines on a lot of it. I mean, I'm more of an aggressive singer and music lover anyways. So, my favorite song is probably Bloodstain from Jugulator, but um, I just love the versatility of Demolition.
What was the toughest song to play, live? With, of course, Rob Halford, he's got an amazing vocal range. What was the toughest song you think you got to do live, during those years from Rob's time?
Well, it was definitely some of my stuff, really, to be honest. I mean, Bullet Train and Abductors on the one tour. I think they were always the toughest ones to do live.
And of course, Judas Priest, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, congrats to them. They worked hard to do it. I mean, obviously, I have nothing to do with it because they erased my time in Judas Priest, so I'm like the invisible singer. But yeah, well deserved. They molded a lot of what people do nowadays in heavy metal. The way they're Glenn and KK, with their double attack on guitars and both being different sounding guitar players, both playing leads and harmonies and everything. They definitely should be there.
You mentioned that they erased you from your, from that time from the band. Does that bother you in any way?
I mean, I always say it, but I mean, listen, I got a lot going on to if I wanted to re-record the song records, I could, but I'm pretty busy. It's not like I sit home and do it. I think it's a shame for fans because I get asked that question every day on social media, every single day. How can I get Jugulator? How can I get it? I mean, that's the weirdest part, that they just don't sell it. It's not like I would make money from it, so it doesn't bother me that way. It bothers me because the fans are missing out on it.
So of course, Rob Halford decided to come back to Judas Priest. Is that kind of how you that ended then your time with Judas Priest when Rob Halford decided to come back?
Yeah, we always knew it was going to happen. I mean, they were getting offered a lot of money, and at that time, in everybody's career, Rob needed Judas Priest, and Judas Priest needed Rob, and I knew it would happen eventually.
So after this, you joined Iced Earth. How was that?
It was good, it was different. I always say compared to it was like the crowds were just as big as the Judas Priest crowds. But I always compared it to being like in baseball, you got your major league and your minor league. Even though they're both pros, I would tell somebody, and I think the main reason for that was Judas Priest was pretty famous. Uh, you could talk to anybody, or someone say, "Hey, that guy sings for Judas Priest." They'd be like, "Oh, I heard of them." You could say he sings for Iced Earth, and they'd be like, "Never heard of him," even though they were selling as many records and playing in front of as big a crowds. It was a good time. It was different for me, but it was good.
What do you think of the metal scene, in the early 2000s? It was kind of a weird time. I think music was kind of going through changes. Streaming was barely getting started. Well, not really streaming, but, illegal downloading and all that. So what do you think of the 2000s metal scene?
Well, it was definitely better than the 90s metal scene.
Okay.
96, I joined Priest in 96, and there was hardly a metal scene at all. When Judas Priest ended their Painkiller tour, Scott was like, man, we were playing in front of like 800 people, 1,000 people, 1,200 people. You know what I mean? It was like, it was crazy. And it was a really strange time. And really the early 2000s is when it started picking up again. I think it really started because you started seeing bands come back together again and playing bigger shows. Anthrax, Death Angel, Testament, even hair metal bands like Rat and all these bands that kind of disappeared, Cinderella, all these bands that disappeared started coming back out again.
Talk to me about Charred Walls of the Damned. How did that collaboration happen? That super group.
Well, I mean, Richard and I were friends. Richard was in Iced Earth, and he left Iced Earth to go audition for the Howard Stern show mid-tour. We had to get Bobby Drzambek to play drums because one day we were supposed to leave for Japan, and Richard said, "Hey, I'm going to go try out for the Howard Stern show," and so it was, and he made it. So that was that. But we stayed in contact. We're good friends, and he said, "Hey, I got this stuff. You want to sing on it?" And it's a lot of fun. I really hope we do another one. The last one we did was my favorite one, so hopefully we'll do another one.
Do you think that's one of the best music you've ever recorded with that band?
No.
No.
I've done. I mean, it all depends on what stuff. I mean, I think it's different. It's really, really good. Absolutely great stuff. But you got to look at different reasons. I mean, to me, I think Beyond Fear is some of my top stuff. I mean, the Judas Priest records were phenomenal. I think. Can you see me all right?
Because I can see you all right. Yeah, you moved in, but you're back now.
I had an incoming call coming in. I think some the KK's Priest stuff was great. I think my new solo EP that's coming out and a new record, I end up the full length. The new EP is amazing. It's very heavy. So I mean, but I think Charred Walls is very underrated stuff.
Any chance that's coming back ever? That collaboration, maybe a tour or a new album?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, hopefully we'll do another record. It's funny because I love to do it. It's probably the absolute lowest paying thing I've ever done. It's really funny, right? Because it's pretty popular and pretty known. Yet I sing for Joe Blow's band and get paid more. But it's so fun and so good.
Yeah, it is, man. I love it. I love what you guys did with that. So I really dig it, man.
Yeah, so I really hope for sure I would be there in a heartbeat.
And since then you've done various projects, including KK's Priest. You guys just recorded an album, came out last year. How was that playing with KK Downing again?
It was great. Ken and I have been really close, and anytime I was on a solo tour in the UK, if I was within 2 hours, he was always to the show. He'd show up with a couple cases of beer to give to the band and say and hang out. And I remember before one show, I did one show that was 2 hours, and my band is a band out of Ireland called Sandstone, and they're my backing band. And we would open with Jugulator. We did Cathedral Spires, Bloodstained, Bullet Train, Dead Meat, Death Row, Burn in Hell. We did it was filled with stuff. And I said before I went on stage to Ken, I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a tour and doing live in London, like doing that concert and then, advertising to that. And he said, man, that's a brutal tour. That's going to be a hard set to sing. And then we got done with that show and he comes back and he goes, yeah, I think you'll be all right doing live in London. You'll be fine. So, Ken and I just stayed in contact. So it was fun to do it. It was a great record. Classic sound. People say, well, it sounds like Judas Priest. Well, it sounds like KK Downing.
Yeah.
I mean, the funniest thing is Firepower from Judas Priest is a fantastic record, I think. But KK's, it doesn't sound like Judas Priest other than Rob, because KK and Glenn's not playing on it. So it's got a whole different sound to it, but it's really good. So I love it. KK's Priest sounds like Priest because KK's writing the stuff. Whenever they say it sounds like Judas Priest, why didn't you do something different? I'm like, dude, it's all he knows how to do. This is how he's written for 50 years. I mean, and I think it's fantastic. He's been sending me ideas now and, to work on it. Hopefully what we'll do, the plan is to work on another record here at some point, get it out and then do some touring.
That's awesome, man. We'd really like to go see that tour. So you did a Deal Disciples, right? So how was that? You did that. Was that back in the 90s?
No, that was
2000. So
yeah,
how was playing Dio songs, live?
It was after Ronnie passed away, and it was great. I was touring with his band, and we just played Dio stuff. And, Ronnie and I were friends, and we were just celebrating Ronnie. And it's great. I mean, it's a lot harder for me to sing Ronnie than it is to sing my catalog. He's probably by far the best singer in metal ever, and music, in my opinion. But it was a lot of fun doing it. It's emotional every night just singing him.
And talk to me about, you haven't seen the documentary, Dio, Dreamers Never Die, but what are your thoughts on it?
I heard it's just, everybody's just raving about it. I was supposed to go to the premiere, a red carpet premiere. Wendy invited me, and I was actually going to stay at Wendy's house, and just had some stuff come up and couldn't make it, which I feel really bad because everybody and their brother was there. I mean, every actor and singer, and it was pretty big deal. Pretty bad thing to miss, but it was I couldn't see it because I was getting on an airplane to go to Spain last week when it premiered locally here at the theater. But I can't wait to see it because I heard it's just so good.
It is, man. You got to see it.
Yeah, and I heard it's being friends with Ronnie and Wendy and everybody, I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
All right, so talk to me about, Rockstar, the 2001 movie featuring Mark Wahlberg. This band is loosely based on you. New York Times article came out and they decided to make a movie, kind of about you. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it was cool. Originally, like I said, they bought the rights to the New York Times article and making a movie about me, but then they decided to just make their own movie, really. What happened was the guys in Judas Priest didn't like how they were being portrayed. They didn't like what was going on. So they said, we want some kind of creativity in this thing. And Warner Brothers said, absolutely not. You can't have it. So we were supposed to have music in it and everything. So I think it would have been better if we stuck around because then they changed things enough that they didn't have to pay us. They would make their own story up and do it. So, but it's great that they got the idea from. I'm pretty honored to have that.
How accurate do you think is the movie? About you.
It's not accurate at all, really. First of all, it was arenas and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that wasn't going on. There was no orgies going on. Not that those are things that you wished upon as a young kid growing up, and then I get there and it was just all business. It is, but there was, tribute singer makes the band, a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities that happened, but then it went off and did its own thing.
And you're going to be touring Australia in a little bit, right? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I just got back, and now I leave for Australia on Sunday. This one actually is a totally different because usually when I tour, it's usually solo or with the Three Tremors. This one it's called the Metal Gods Tour, and we're doing because Simon Wright is on drums, so he played with Ronnie and was good friends with Ronnie. Actually lived with Ronnie forever, and we're doing half Dio, half Priest. We're mixing it up, but we're doing like 10 songs from each, and just having a celebration of Priest and Dio. So it's going to be a real fun night.
And you have, of course, a new solo album coming, a new solo album that came out. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it hasn't come out yet. We have released 2 songs from it. We released Embattled and Return to Death Row. I absolutely love it. It's an EP. It's got 6 songs on it. It's out for pre-order. You can pre-order it. You can go to my website or my Facebook pages and Instagram and Twitter and all that and find where to get it. Produced by Jamie Josta. It's heavy. It's really going back to my roots. It's got a lot of Jugulator in it. It's got a lot of my older stuff. And the Return to Death Row song we just released is a thrasher. I mean, it's heavy, and I really like it. The production and the songs and the vocals are the exact kind of vocals I like to sing. A lot of balls to them.
All right. So I want to thank you, Tim, for coming on the show today. It was great talking to you. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you. Hey, and listen, check my website for shows coming up. I have shows in LA coming up with I'm doing solo. It's actually got 3 Trimmers and me solo in Cage. So we got like Tijuana and maybe San Diego, but we're playing in LA. So check all that out.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.